Alright, well, welcome back to PacWestBigfoot.com. This is David, and we're going to go ahead and start with our latest story and encounter, being chased by Bigfoot in the North Fork Skokomish, the first divide trail scare. I was being chased by Bigfoot in North Fork Skokomish. I thought for a few moments there that I would never make it out alive. I might have been the instigator here. Seriously, I think it was my fault that I was chased down, and what I thought was going to be the mauling of me by a sasquatch, or two, in the state of Washington. Here's my story, and I'm sticking to it because it's true. North Skokomish River Hike. Here's a little description of North Fork. The most scenic section of this trail is the route to First Divide, where you find the gorgeous mountain views in a small pass 4,688 feet high. The hike to the First Divide is 13.1 miles from the staircase trailhead. First Divide is a good destination for day hikers looking for lots of miles or overnighters. Past First Divide, it's only 2.9 miles downhill to the Duckabash River Trail, or just 1 mile to Home Sweet Home Camp. While that is a guide's version, let me tell you this. God made this. It is too beautiful to have been an accident or made by something as weak as chance. Chance is for those who have no faith in anything, and that includes themselves. You're in the lower alpines of the Olympia mountain range here, in this part of the Skokomish River area, and it is just simply beautiful. However, if you're not careful, you could also be in a dangerous place. I'm an avid hiker, and I still am today. I'm also a Christian and know that when it is your time, nothing will stop the good Lord from calling you home, no matter how he does it either. So, as a believer, I leave fear to the Lord and simply go about today enjoying his creation. But he also wants us to have a healthy respect for what he has made, and that includes Bigfoot. Not too far from Lake Cushman, the winding Skokomish River flows, and some of the best day hikes can be found, especially the trail you take before the First Divide. Once you reach the divide, well, that is for some or more serious hikers and overnight hikers. I'm a pretty serious hiker, but due to some recent time constraints, I was not able to do more than a day hike that Saturday morning. Work had been giving me a headache. I'm a photographer with a newspaper, and while I am not a left-leaning person, well, it seems life can be a little harder in the liberally biased media world if you're not one of them. Work was getting harder for me to do. It was as if they wanted me out, but could find no other way to get me out than to slowly make it unbearable to work there until I would quit on my own. I had no real friends there. They were all gone. Everyone there now was a lefty with no imagination and as close-minded as can be. As a matter of fact, I think this incident was enough for them to let me go eventually. But not without paying me off, mind you. I've been there 17 years and earned it all. Hey, I was not going to quit. I think they knew that in the end. But let me get back on topic. That part of my life was almost as horrible as making Bigfoot mad. So, as I was saying, I was out for a hike along the subalpine trail along the Skokomish River. I'm going to take a sip of Sasquatch coffee. That's a commercial break. SasquatchCoffee.com. Backpack on with its content being that of a bottle of water, some food, a change of clothes just in case, and of course an extra battery pack for my camera, plus my nifty 50 lens. Currently, I had the 70 to 200 millimeter mounted on my Canon EOS. I was determined to get some great shots on this chilly but clear-skied morning along the trail. Ice crystals could be seen glistening off everything, and the snow-capped alpine-laden mountains that surrounded me sparkled as well. As I walked on, my breath could be seen floating in the cold morning air, and the sound of water rushing by was the only thing to be heard. I guess I should have noticed that. Most people who are not outdoors as often never notice animal noises if the sound of water can be heard. I guess I should have noticed that. Most people who are not outdoors as often never notice that when other loud sounds can be heard. The louder the sound, the more deaf you become to the sounds around you. In this case, however, I was used to spending some time in God's beautiful creation, and all of a sudden, I heard nothing, just water. To me, This just meant that either a bear or a mountain lion were possibly nearby. So, knowing that human sounds scare them off, most of the time that is, I started traveling a little heavier. And I started banging sticks and throwing rocks when I could here and there. Hey, I was not going to leave. Besides, I had a small pistol in my backpack. Plus, I just wanted to be away from the city and was determined to be so. Part 2, Knocks and Rocks. I kept knocking and throwing rocks as I walked along. Still, even though from time to time I would stop to snap off a great shot with my camera, the only sound that could be heard was that of the river. But that ended moments later. As I was coming around a bend through a narrow part of the usually wide trail, most of the, at the first divide, a rock came flying from above the trail. It came through the trees off the hillside and flew by about 4 feet in front of me. It was not a small rock either. It was at least the size of 3 to 4 softballs, as I recall. "What throws rocks?" I said under my breath. I stopped dead in my tracks, and that's when the knocking started. I heard 3 distinct knocks that sounded much like mine did earlier. And now that I had gone and thrown rocks, well, whatever it was up there was throwing them back at me. What did I start? I thought to myself. I sat for a few minutes and stood still and listened intently to everything. This time I heard what sounded like a growl followed by a grunt. That scared me, period. I started praying underneath my breath at that moment. I also reached inside my backpack, slowly placed my camera in it, and pulled out my pistol in its place. As I was zipping it up, the loudest scream I had ever heard in my life erupted from the thick forest. I could feel it vibrating through me, as if Joshua and his army were blowing their trumpets at Jericho. I felt for a second like crumbling to my knees. It stopped after about 15 seconds, and I gathered my wits long enough to notice something up on the hillside. Not 40 yards away, I could see a tall pine tree being vibrated back and forth violently. What came next was crazy, simply crazy. Then from the south, about 30 to 40 yards down the trail, came another blood-curdling scream. There were 2 of whatever they were. This was not a bear or a cougar. Nothing screams like that or shakes trees as a warning around here. Nothing I know of, at least. A second later, whatever it was up the hill was now crashing down through the woods towards me. The second one I could hear, but I decided not to stick around and wait. I simply turned back and ran as fast as I could. I was not wanting to turn around and fire my gun at anything I didn't know. That is just not okay. However, I felt like it, especially when I could hear and feel the ground below me rumbling as something was approaching fast from my right. Above me on the hillside, whatever it was big and it was fast. The brush was so thick off the trail that I was shocked to even hear whatever it was moving alongside me, probably within 50 to 60 feet on the hillside. But that's when it got really scary. The second one was now even closer, and it sounded like it was right behind me. I could now hear it panting in its fast footsteps right behind me. As I ran for my life, I started to panic, but at the same time I was not sure if these things wanted to catch me or simply run me off. Why? Well, they were moving fast enough to catch me easily. The next thing I knew, I was almost to the trailhead near my car when I felt a big hand, push me forward, and I mean pushed me. I practically flew forward about 8-9 feet before I slid and tumbled over the hard ground. Later I would realize that I had 2 decent gashes along my left leg near my knee. I got up fast, however, and I heard that what sounded like some foreign mixed-up ranting and talking and raving. Whatever they were at this point, they were not happy with me being there and wanted me gone. As I continued the last 30 yards to my car, they kept up the pace on either side of me. I can't tell you how scared I was. And I had my finger on the trigger of my pistol the rest of the way. Finally, I reached my Jeep. I practically jumped in when I opened the door. I was sobbing, almost in tears, praying to the Lord and thanking Him for letting me get back here at all. And as I was praying, something told me to look up. What I saw amazed me, shocked me, thoroughly changed my view of the whole Bigfoot myth being a myth. There were two of them. One seemed to be at least 9 foot tall, and the other was about a head and a half shorter. Both were very dark brown color, except the big one, of whose face I could see. He had a tint of gray on his chest, and yes, it was a he. The smaller one moved fast back into the thick of the forest, as the other one stood there for a split second that to me lasted forever. It blinked, grimaced, showed its yellow and scary teeth, and let out a scream that turned into a howl that shook me again. After that, it turned and walked back into the woods as if it were the king here, and I was out of place, and it put me back in it. The face looked like that of an ape. Not really human, but I can see why people might think so with some of the features, like the nose and eyes. Those that say it looks as though it has Down syndrome, well, I hate how that sounds and the way that it sounds, but those people who notice that are seriously correct. I wanted to turn around and just start shooting at that point in the trail. I was actually about to, but that is when the hand pushed me from behind. I believe that was the good Lord protecting me and protecting that Bigfoot too, personally speaking. When I overhear people today talking about Bigfoot, I never smile. Actually, I shiver a bit as the image of that day and the sounds play back in my mind. I still like hiking. I still go out alone. Today, however, the gun is bigger, and I have a dog is a great early warning system.